Rebound in travel demand provides a bright spot for the airline industry recovery. However, the threat of the pilot shortage lingers as airlines push forward efforts to fill in the gap, while travelers are set to pay the price in airfares. Here to discuss is OAG Chief Analyst John Grant. John, great to have you here with us. All right, help us first kind of set the tone here around what's taking place between the airlines and the pilot negotiations.
It's called supply and demand. There just isn't enough pilots around the world globally to accommodate the planned growth we see in the market. New aircraft are still being delivered on a regular basis, and every aircraft probably needs between 15 and 20 minimum pilots. And, you know, we've got this issue of growth, but we've also got another issue at the back of that, which is an aging pilot workforce. Historically, recruitment has been at bare minimum levels within the industry. And as the food chain of pilots exhausts itself, then we're going to have this shortage. And it's going to be a challenging period for many airlines and a great time to be a pilot, because chances are you're going to earn the best salary you probably could for a very short period of time.
John, obviously the skilled labor shortage is a problem in a lot of different industries. In the U.S., we've got a doctor problem also. For pilots specifically, what is the issue? Why aren't more young people going into the business? Where are recruiters falling down the job? Like, what about the message is not getting out there?
Well, firstly, it's expensive to qualify, and airlines for many years have not around the globe actually sponsored that qualification. So if you wanted to become a pilot, one of the main ways was to become a private pilot, get your license, which you would have to pay for. And you would go to a pilot training school, then you would start with a regional airline, and you'd work very hard and you'd build your hours up, and then you'd progress to a larger airline, maybe what we term a single aisle aircraft, and then through to wide-bodied long-haul type flying, which is, you know, what the vision of a pilot is. But that whole process has been expensive, and people, quite frankly, haven't been able to afford it. So that's created part of the bottleneck. Some of the changes in rules and regulations about the retirement age around the world. Quite a few countries now say you must retire by 65, and some say even by 60. So, you know, these little individual elements all add up to a problem for the industry.
It seems like there are going to be more pilots that are able to emerge out of some of the training programs that the individual airlines have started to really ramp up in order to kind of meet that imbalance of the supply and demand of how many pilots they have in order to get back to their full route capacities as well. Is there a timeline that we should be thinking about that they can actually hold up to right now?
I think we're looking into the next decade for this to be resolved, and that assumes that, you know, there is an accelerated program of pilot training and qualification, and we look at alternate methods of bringing people on stream faster. So, for instance, if you wanted to join Southwest as a pilot, you had to have a minimum of 1,000 hours certified on that particular aircraft type. They've reduced that recently to 500 hours. That will push people through. It's not going to do it. Not going to do anything to undermine safety, because they're still going to have to be certified and checked and qualified. But it means, you know, they're investing in this area. Around the world, we're seeing airlines build new training centres, spending hundreds of millions of dollars on new facilities and flight simulator training pods. So the industry's making the right noises and beginning to bring more pilots online. But, you know, at the back end, you've got these guys who have retired, and you've got those who want to retire. And it's a challenging situation we face.
And all of that sounds like it's going to be potentially more expensive for us, right, as flyers. If the airlines are having to spend more to train these folks, or if they're just not finding them at all and they don't have as many seats available because they don't have the pilots to fly the planes. Is that the situation we find ourselves in for the foreseeable future?
Well, I think, you know, we should accept that most airfares are a lot more expensive than they were during the pandemic and even in 2019, and that is going to stay. There are elements like the cost of fuel that are part of that. But if we bring more pilots into the world's pool of pilots, then what we will see, of course, is that cost being a burden to the airlines. Now, if you divide that by the number of seats on average a pilot will fly or drive per annum, we're talking perhaps of a couple of dollars per seat. But when we have that cost, we have the same cost for cabin staff and for Teamsters. We have higher fuel cost. We are expecting to see more cost for en route services and navigation fees. There's a lot of additional cost in the industry that are likely to get passed down to the consumer. And we haven't even discussed government's attempts to charge travelers sustainability taxes, carbon emission charges, and all of these things that are going to be coming through in the next decade. So, it is going to be more expensive per passenger. There's no doubt about that.
John, while we have you here, it is also a negotiation on the matter of which types of aircrafts they're going to be flying. What do we know so far about and correlating some of the orders that have already come through from certain airlines into how that's translating into updating the type of training that pilots are getting right now, and how that also reflects into the pay that they're getting too for specific aircrafts?
Well, I mean, we've clearly had the unfortunate incidents around Boeing and the MAX and the training and the requirements there. And one of the objectives of most aircraft, or the two major aircraft manufacturers, is to make sure there is a cockpit commonality between aircraft type, so that the training to move up to a larger aircraft or a different aircraft is, pretty similar, and the controls are in the same place, and all the things we expect to see in a car. I think the way the industry is going, the two generic large aircraft manufacturers, Boeing and Airbus, have families of cockpits that people are trained on. So that transition is probably going to be one of the less burdens that airlines are going to have to carry. They're going to be able to migrate people up into larger aircraft. But it's when an airline in India places the world's largest aircraft order, that has pressure and creates pressure all around the world, because pilots are one of the most portable workforces in the world. They can go where the salary is the best. And, I even hear stories of pilots working for exotic Asian airlines who actually still live in Los Angeles or live in London and start their working week or their working roster by flying that airline's aircraft from Los Angeles to Hong Kong or to Seoul in Incheon. So it's an extremely portable workforce.
John, thank you so much. Really great perspective on all of these issues. OAG Chief Analyst John Grant, appreciate it.